My name's Teresa McCloy. I'm the founder and creator of The Real Life Process. And I want to start with this story that I want to tell you. I do not remember turning 50, have no recollection of my 50th birthday. And it's not because I have bad memory. It was just all that was going on in my life. As I stand here, I'm 61, but I don't remember and I'm proud to be 61. Thank you very much. I feel like in many ways, life is just beginning. People are like, are you ready to retire? And I go, no, like it just started. So, but I don't remember my 50th birthday. And literally I felt like with my hair on fire. It is not why I have gray hair. This is hereditary, but that's how I felt. I felt like life was just crazy and chaotic. And I knew that I needed to do something different. I live on a farm in central Illinois. My husband is a full-time farmer, 4th generation. My daughter will be the 5th. And if you know anything about farming, it is hair on fire most of the time. It is hard work. It is hard, labor intense. That's who I grew up. My dad was a farmer. My mom was a teacher. All I knew was how to get crap done and how to work really, really hard. And it had caught up with me, but it had become my behavior. So I really could stand up here and say, hello, my name is Teresa. I'm a recovering workaholic. No last name shared, right? And that's what I could say. That's what I could do. That was the behaviors and the patterns that my life was in. Matt talked earlier about, I love that I get to go on Friday because I could reference all your stuff. Matt talked earlier about imposter syndrome. That's what I felt like. How do I keep all the balls in the air, all the juggles going, all the things, so nobody knows what's really going on right here in my gut? Because there was a lot going on in my gut. So if you don't mind, I'm going to take the privilege to share with you a little bit of a story. At the time when I was 50, I had a junior high daughter. Can you just say thank you for surviving? Like junior high kids, daughters especially. Had a junior high daughter who was 14 at the time, had just found her family in Romania. She's adopted. So I want to give you the context of where I'm at right now. She's found her family on Facebook. And she's ready to go back to Romania to visit her family with our permission, and I was going with her. And my 24-year-old son, we're not sure what's going on with him, 10 years apart, but we knew something. I'm full-time in ministry. My husband's full-time in farming. This is my life. It's pretty crazy. Many of you in the room have been there, and you've had these types of places. But I just want to share this story with you. That fall morning was beautiful with trees outside, having changed to what seemed like 12 different shades of color. Have you noticed the trees changing here? They're so beautiful. As a farming family, we were in the height of harvest with all that harvest entails. I had asked the church leadership if I could work from home one day a week so I could be more present with my family. The church was 20 miles away. It was easy to spend hours traveling the blacktop from our farm to the church and back and forth several times a day with my daughter. The change of pace was nice. I looked forward to not running so fast, at least one day a week. Earlier, I had driven our daughter to school. I was back home brewing a fresh pot of coffee, and I distinctly remember setting up my laptop at the kitchen table and settling in to get some work done. I felt good about this healthier step toward being more present with my family. Granted, this was long before COVID and anybody working from home. This was 2011. Just as I started into my work for the day, our son, Eric, who had moved back home once again to help his dad with harvest, walked in the kitchen door, sat down across from me at the table, and said, "Mom, I need to talk to you." At that moment, I wished I could just say, here's my mom voice, "Whatever it is, we can talk about it later. You need to get out and help your dad." But as Eric sat there, building the courage to speak, I could only sit silent and wait for this man-child, this precious boy that we had adopted at 5 months old, was about to shed light on all the questions, all the concerns we had been feeling about him for quite some time. You know the moments in a life that seem to shift? Do you know the moments in life that seem to shift into slow motion? The music builds and it's a really bad movie. This was that moment. As I braced for his words, I knew this was a time for listening and nothing more. With tears in the corner of his eyes, finding the way down his handsome face, and a trembling voice, his whole body shaking, he simply said, "Mom, I'm addicted to heroin. I'm scared to death, and I don't know what to do." Of all the things he could have told us, this is not what we were expecting. We knew he was drinking a lot and going through a scary amount of money, which he attributed to gambling. We knew he was struggling emotionally, physically, spiritually, but drug addiction and heroin? How, when, where, why? We had asked many times about drugs, and just as many times he had said, "No, not drugs." And we believed him. We believed him because he was our son and we loved him more than life itself. That day would be very dark and painful, a 6-year battle with events, stories, trauma, and heartache. A battle I wouldn't wish on any family. A battle that would fling shrapnel to anyone and everyone close and leave our family walking wounded for quite some time. And in my typical fashion, don't miss this, not knowing yet how to live differently, I decided I needed to do something, anything to fix this and get us back to normal as fast as possible. I was positive I could work my way through this, but first I just had to get through the day. And like a shell-shocked survivor, I scrambled to pick up the pieces of our shattered family, making calls, seeking resources, and struggling to make sense. In less than 24 hours, it's a key how fast I can move, we were driving our 24-year-old son to the first of many treatment centers. I share that story just to set up what my behaviors were, what I was doing. And I wished I could tell you that story has a great and happy ending, but it doesn't. Our son passed away 5 years ago in 2017 from a heroin addiction, 3 weeks out of getting out of a treatment center. But his story has so much impact because of how it impacted me. So I don't remember that 50th birthday, and here's why. Not only because of that story, but here's the way I was living. There's 4 things in that story, that little piece that I just shared with you that you heard. I had unhealthy relationships. I was so codependent with my son. Like, I scheduled his hair appointments and when he should go to the dentist, and he was 24 years old. Like, I just didn't know how to let go. I had unstable energy. We'll talk about that in a little bit and what that looks like. I had a craving to slow down. Did you hear it? How can I stay home? How can I be present to my family? And my time was out of control. This was long before I'm a techie geek. And this was long before I figured out how to figure out technology and make it do things at 2 and 3 in the morning when I was still up working, so that nobody would know I was still up working at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Now Google will do that for you. Your Gmail will. How many of you are guilty? Come on. You write the email and you set it to send at 6 o'clock. Like, oh, he's up so early doing the stuff. No, you were up at 3. Let's be honest. Okay. So what I longed for was rest, but I didn't know what that meant. And I'm not talking about take a day off and have a vacation. I'm talking about living from an internal place of rest. So this is my process, and this is what I've had to work through over the last 12 years. I want to do my life differently. And the new book that I have coming out in 3 weeks, which is super exciting, little plug, Do What Matters. I had to go on a 12-year journey of discovery, and I'm still on it. It'll never be done. That's why it's called a process. We're always in process of doing this. So visually, this is what it looks like. How many of you so far since you've been here have walked in the room and said, "Hi, nice to meet you. So what do you do?" Right? We don't say, "Who are you? What's your middle name? Where do you live?" Any of those things. We said, "What do you do?" That's our culture. That's what we live in. We identify what we do. Hence my imposter syndrome. I've had 42 jobs, people. I have been looking for what's the thing I'm supposed to do my entire life. Since my dad said, "Here's a corn hook, go cut corn out of beans." I was affirmed by what I did and how I performed. That flows down into your real life, and it takes over everything. As entrepreneurs, we are the worst at this. We think we're I don't want to work for anybody else. I'm going to work for myself. And then we end up working 16, 18 hours a day because we're working for ourselves. So, wasn't that fun? That was a great trade-off. Weekends, Saturdays, Sundays, no, can't go out with my friends, can't do anything because I'm working. And we don't know who we are. You look at that triangle. How easy can I push that over? How easy can crisis happen? How easy can I say, no, it's out of control? So I wanted to build my life differently on a different foundation. And that's the work that I'm passionate about doing, is helping others do the same. It's not that hard, people. It's not rocket science. I often say that. It's just making some pre-decisions and some different choices. So I want to know who my real self is. So that takes over my everyday, ordinary life. And I make decisions from that place. And then my work, who cares what I do? I'm 61. I may retire in 8 years. I may sell the business. I don't care. I'm still going to have those bottom two foundations. My title might be different. Y'all agree? Are you in? Okay. Well, let's learn a few things. First of all, this is the definition in the dictionary of rest. This is crap. No. This is I'm going to stop working. That's it. What does that mean? I'm going to stop moving so I can relax and refresh. And, this is going to be so great. How many of you, and I know I'm talking to workaholics in the room. So how many of you go on a vacation and it takes you 2 weeks before you go to plan all the things you're going to do, and then you work really hard for 2 weeks when you get back? Come on, admit it. Right? Wasn't that a great vacation? Didn't you love it? Or here's the entrepreneurial story of it. That's my business clients. Here's the entrepreneurial story. I love that I can travel and work from anywhere. What a false belief. You're still working. I've done it too. I've told my husband, here we are in the beautiful Dominican Republic. And I'm like, if you'll just give me an hour and a half every day, I can get it all done, and I'll be done by 9:00 and I can go hang out with you. That's not really rest. That's not really working from that place. So I decided that I was going to redefine what rest was. Let's say what rest really is. And we don't have time to go into all this because I want to teach you one thing, but here's what rest really is. Healthy relationships, full circle energy, intentional slowing, and purposeful time. Purposeful time is this book. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But healthy relationships, Nick touched on this. This is what I didn't have. You can screenshot this stuff. I'll send you the deck later, but y'all know this stuff. Healthy relationships is responsible for and responsible to. Two different things. I was a codependent. I had to do my own recovery work with my kids. Some of you, that may really hit home. What's your relationship with your kids? Right? Okay. Next one, full circle energy. I am an Enneagram professional, is I think what the official title is. I've done a lot of work with the Enneagram. I've served on the International Enneagram Board, and I love the tool of the Enneagram. You may not be familiar with it. We're not going to go into it. But what I learned from that tool, you may know your type, you may know where you sit, is that it's not really about a type. It's not really about naming who I am. It's really about that full circle energy. My head, what I think, my heart, what I feel, and my body, what I know. By the way, all these graphics are from my friend Mike B. So he's awesome. And my guidebook is from there. So yeah, love his stuff. But that full circle energy, I was only in my forward energy of do. I didn't know how to rest. I didn't know how to wait. I didn't know how to take time off. And I sure didn't know how to intentionally slow down. Here's a couple things you might think about that. I have to discern what slowing looks like for me personally. I'm going to give you all permission to go home and buy a hot tub. It's the best thing for slowing down. Okay. So if you take nothing away, go home, tell your spouse if you're married or your significant other that you got permission to buy a hot tub. Now, for me, that's a perfect place to slow down because I can't do anything in the hot tub. Well, I really can, but that's beside the point. But I can't. I have to be still. I have to be quiet. It's good for my body. It's the way I have chosen to intentionally, one of the ways on a daily basis that I have intentionally slowed down. I have pre-decided how I will practice these. So that's a decision. Pre-deciding is huge at the real life process. If you make decisions ahead of time, you don't have to make them again. You're done. You've used that energy once. It's why when we go to the refrigerator at 9 o'clock at night, we choose ice cream over vegetables. Our brain is done making decisions. We've decided everything that we can decide. So pre-decide. What does it look like for you to add slowing down into your life, to add vacations, to add real days of rest where you do nothing? So I want to dive in today then to purposeful time, and we're going to unpack purposeful time in the time that we have left. And we're going to go into these things. But what I had to come up with was a statement that said, I really want to redefine for people what rest is. So this is our statement. We are bold at the process, and we say things with I, not, well, you should, or we all. No, own it and claim it. I. So when I live from rest, my internal being and my external doing are in alignment. This is restful, and it shows out in me externally. Not live from rush. Ooh, what everybody else puts on my calendar, what everybody else, I'm saying yes, I'm saying yes, I'm saying yes. So when they're congruent, I am present in relationships. I'm not on my phone. I'm not thinking about that something else. I'm aware of my energy. I'm engaged in intentional rhythms, and I'm purposeful in how I use my time. A lot of people would call me a time management person. I'm not a time management person. It's not about how I get more done. It's about why I'm doing it. There's a big difference. Why am I saying yes? Why am I doing these things? And we're not going to have time to dive deep. So I decided I was going to write a process to live life. These are my 4 components. We're not going into all of these. First, you got to create your rule of life. I call my process a modern day rule of life. Rule of life is an old, ancient term, but it's saying these are the things that matter to me, and this is how I'm going to live my life, and I've pre-decided that. Real life action. Now, how do I do that? What do I want to do from that plan in the next 90 days that will move me in growth in these areas of my life? Spiritually, relationally. One of my areas of focus in my life is my extended family. I name them that way. My mother-in-law is 90. My parents are 85 and 88. Guess where I need to be spending some time? Right? We lost Dale's dad last year, 92. We got some longevity in us. That's a great thing. But if I'm not spending time with them, what does it matter, right? So defining that and then saying, what am I going to do in the next 90 days around some of those things, not everything. Third component we're going to unpack today is real life time. Now that I know what matters, how does it show up in my everyday, ordinary life? If I said yes to these things, are they on my calendar? When I do workshops, a lot of times I'll ask a bunch of people, and I could ask you guys the same thing. What's the most important thing to you? Somebody shout it out. Family? Are they on your calendar? Right?
That's good. That's good, Teresa.
Like if you say they're the most important thing to you, where's the next thing you're spending time with? So one of my commitments with my extended family, I have an I am statement around every area of focus in my life. And it says, I am seeing my parents on a monthly basis in person. They live 2 hours away. So it's a commitment. Guess what? I have to put it on the calendar. I have to pre-decide where they're showing up. And everybody in the room would probably say relationships, but they're not what's on your calendar. You work them in the cracks and the crevices of everything else you do. So I grew up on a farm, but my mother-in-law taught me how to can pickles. Normally, I bring my pickles with me, so I'm so sorry that I don't have my mason jar of homemade sweet pickles, because they are delicious. But I love the example of the jar of sweet pickles for several reasons. So in this jar, there is the jar, which is the container. So I want you to picture that your calendar is a container, right? It's a jar. Okay. You get to decide what goes in the container. So what's a couple of things that go in a pickle jar?
Cucumbers.
Pickles, which you all know they're really cucumbers, right? Go with me. Okay. Y'all know that pickles are not pickles. Raisins are not grape, or raisins are grapes. Like, you know, y'all know these things, right? Okay. So pickles or cucumbers go in the jar. What else? Pickle juice or brine. Dill, if you're dill pickles. Ooh, sweet pickles are the way to go. Okay. Sorry, Steve. Love you, but not the dill. Okay. So, but what matters about putting together a jar of pickles? Because here's the thing. If I put the brine in first and then I go to put the pickles in, what happens? I got a mess. And when it's sweet pickles, that juice is so horrible to clean up off of your counter because it's nothing but sugar that's been in a container for 14 days fermenting, literally. Okay. So that's a mess. So it makes a difference how we put things into our calendar first. I'll come back to the pickles in a minute. These are the 4 things. You can take a screenshot of that if you want all of them. I wanted to do worksheets, but I'm like, wow, that's a lot of paper and printing. So y'all just take some screenshots or I'll send it to you. But I'm going to go through each one of these. Present block, people block, project block, prep block. Okay? This is nothing new. You're just going to give language to what you're doing. Does that make sense? All this is in your calendar, I hope, but maybe not. So let's go through them. First one, present block. I told you I'm real applicable. Like this is apply stuff, okay? First one, present block. These are your exercise times. This is your self-care, your soul care, your personal growth stuff, ways that you spend time pouring into self. So if you have a piece of paper or you want to take some notes, what do you do and what do you love to do during a present block time? I recommend and try to get my clients to have daily present block times, but start small. If you're not doing any, do 2 a week, but claim that time for yourself first. It feels selfish. Do it. And I'll tell you why. The next one. So present block to me is my hot tub. It is my morning routine. Many of you might have that. But you know what other routine is really important as you develop your best real life and really get into this process? A nighttime routine. When are you going to put your phone down? When are you going to lay it in the other room? When are you going to close the laptop? My husband thinks I work all the time because I have my laptop open. I'm like, no, I just don't want to watch the Cardinals on TV. We live in the Midwest. I just don't want to watch the Cardinals. Y'all can probably agree. And I'm shopping. I'm actually not working, right? So our laptop is bad because it's entertainment and work. So pre-decide when you're going to close the top. After 8 o'clock, I'm not looking at my screen. I'm not having screen time, okay? Present blocks. The next one is people blocks. This is the one nobody else will tell you. Nobody else says in time management and how to get more done, oh, have a lot of time with people. But yet you all just told me that's what matters the most to you. When Eric passed away, we had his services on a Sunday afternoon, and there were over 650 people that attended his services. We had no idea that many people would come. We actually thought about having a private service because of how he had passed away. And then we decided, no, we need to tell his story. So the addict world shows up for each other. I'm just saying. I know that's a weird thing, but people in recovery or the in or out of recovery show up for one another. They know how to do community. So they were all there. My church family was all there. But what blew me away is when my high school friends walked in the door. They drove 3 and 4 hours. One of them flew in and they walked in the door. And I said, well, crap. They all know each other. That's my strongest word. Sorry. They all had stayed in touch for the last 35 years. Guess who hadn't? I didn't have time. They'd done dinner. They'd flown to Dallas Cowboys games together. They'd done all this stuff. I was always busy. Plus I was doing God's work. So that got me even more gold stars at that time in my life. Right? But I was too busy. And yet that's when I said, no, people matter. And if they matter, I got to put them in first. So I have a date night every Friday night with my husband. Come hell or high water, we're going on a date together. I am committed in my I am statement around the area of focus of my family and my extended family that my daughter and I are having some type of time together every single week because she lives close by. So if you say it out of your mouth, make it show up on your calendar. People blocks, 30 to 60 minute blocks of time. 3 to 5 a week. That's not that much, people. But if you say it, live it out. And here's why. What do they say when you fly on a plane? Well, during COVID, they said, take off your mask, put on your mask, take off your mask, put on your mask. You have so many masks, you don't even know what you're putting on at that point in time. But put on your own oxygen mask first, and then what do? You help the people around you. That's what you do. So do your calendar the same way. Put on your own oxygen mask first with your present blocks. Make sure the people are in there first, then go do your work, because your work may change. So the next one is project blocks. I won't go into this a whole lot because it actually goes to component number 2, but this is deep work. Y'all know what deep work is, right? Choosing the things that you're working on. And here's what I want to challenge you to do. Don't just choose projects. I don't call them goals. We won't go into all that. Don't just choose things to work on that have to do with work. One of my projects was my husband and I want to travel. And so we had to figure out how we wanted to travel. Do we want to fly? Do we want Airbnbs? Do we want to buy an RV? No, that's too much work. He doesn't want to do that. What's a project that moves that area of your life forward? Not just in work, but in relationships, in spirituality, in your own self-care. Have a project, put the action steps to it, and make it happen. So what have we done so far? We've put in present blocks. Then what did we put in? Then what we put in? Projects. Guess what? Here's where y'all live most of the time. You live in prep. You open up your laptops just like I do and you go, oh my gosh, I got 100 emails. And most of them are from like Land's End or somewhere. But, I got all these emails. But all of a sudden you're sucked in. You're sucked into the task. Do you notice the difference? Projects had what? Action steps. Things you've pre-decided in a little time away every 90 days and said, these are the 15 things I got to do with that project. Boom, boom, boom. When I get to that time, I'm going to kick them out. But this is where you get caught. And then you wonder why you don't get anything done, or those projects that you wanted to do don't move forward the way you want, because you're in prep time. So have a beginning and an end to prep time. 30 minutes at a time. 45 minutes at a time. Let it be that margin time throughout your day that you can put in. Can I go back one? Because I got to say something important right here. Not only is who you want on your calendar, because this is huge, who do you want off your calendar? Don't want to miss that one. Sorry, got to say it out loud. Y'all went, oh, on that one. Can we do that again? Oh, okay. So who do you want off your calendar? There are people that are sucking the life out of you. Sorry. Wow, I got a big amen over here. We'll talk later. There are people that are sucking the life out of you. So part of stopping every 90 days and saying, I need to review all of this, is saying, you know what? I don't need that coach anymore. I love that Mike gives us the opportunity to say yes or no every so often to whether we still, because we can just keep doing things and don't need to be. Or that friend, I am so tired of that friend. Like they're killing me. You get to say yes or no. And if you've pre-decided, yeah. So I had to go back to that one because it ties into this one. Those are the two things: wrong people on your calendar and too much of this. Okay. Schedule a couple a day. Make a pre-decision with yourself that you're not going to your inbox till after 10 o'clock or till noon. I find the best time to do prep block time is right before lunch, right after lunch, and at the close of the day. And if I can do that, that's still, if I allow 45 minutes or 30 minutes, that's still 2.5 hours in that stuff, or running errands or doing all the things you need to do. So when you really think about it, it's a lot of time to do those things. But we use our email like a to-do list. So let's come back to the jar so you get the visual. The juice in the jar is those crazy prep blocks. And if I fill up my whole jar with prep stuff, it's a mess. When I try to put the projects in, when I try to put the people in, when I try to put that in, all of a sudden, all this is overflowing. So as you think about the container of your calendar, does it tie back to what really matters to you? Okay. So the other thing about a pickle jar is, if you know anything about canning, there's something at the top of the jar that's technically called the headspace. You have to have it in a jar. Do y'all know what pressure cooking is? Now we all use an Instapot. We're so cool. That's an old-fashioned pressure cooker. They just renamed the thing. Okay. So headspace at the top of the jar keeps the lid from blowing off. Literally. So when you put it under pressure, if you've got it filled all the way to the brim, and your ceiling is going to look awful because the lid blows through it. And I saw it happen at my mother-in-law's. Okay. we're old school people. Like we still can food. But that space right there at the top can't go that high. Same thing with your calendar. If you look at it and there is no margin, there is no place, guess what I learned? Margin is where you create memories. Margin is where you create memories. My son's addiction caused me to start to put margin. When they call you, I was on platform at my church. My husband's standing in the back with a cell phone in his hand. I knew Eric had OD'd on a Sunday morning. And I'm finishing the last song. So margin creates space. So you get to decide, which one do you need? I want you to write it down real quick as we wrap up. Do you need a prep block? Do you need a present block? Do you need a people block? Do you need a project block in your calendar? It all comes back to, I want to live from rest, not rush. I want healthy relationships. I want full circle energy. I want intentional slowing, and I want purposeful time. This is a quote that I use all the time. I end every podcast with this quote. Every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them. You have to find them in the margins and in the spaces that you create purposefully. So for 1,400, yes, you heard me right, 1,460 days, I have taken a picture every day. It's my way of capturing the moments. I don't journal. I capture the moment. And I take a picture and I post it on my personal Facebook page and I write something about it. It's almost 4 years. I started it 4 years after Eric passed away, just to say, yeah, today has something. I can find something today. Mike Kim is up there. My group from last year in Denver is up there because this group has become important to me. My daughter's wedding, and that's my son right there and right there with a baseball cap. But he's what drives the don't forget it matters. Don't forget lunch with someone that you've had here. Some conversation that you have matters. So I'm going to make one final ask as I wrap up because Mike said we should ask. So I'm going to ask. This is a link to the Amazon link for my book, but you can find it on Barnes & Noble and Walmart and Target and all the places if you would like to. But one of the biggest things you could do for me is to pre-order the book. Once you pre-order, you can get all these pre-order bonuses if you want. You can come hang out with me on some free calls. You can download the beautiful workbook and guidebook that Mike B did. Here it is right here. It's beautiful, hand-drawn, all the stuff. You get some of that material as well. And I'd love to hang out with you. Visible TV's doing a documentary for me that you'll get ahead of time. Some great bonuses. But really, if you could read it, leave a review, it'd be so helpful for me. It's got some good stories, and my whole entire process is inside that book. Here's where you can connect with me, follow me. I have a podcast. Right now, it's called The Real Life Process, but it's probably going to change. I'm talking about changing the name of the podcast. But those are all the ways to connect. It's been great to connect with all of you over the last few days. And yeah, remember, every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. You just have to look for them.